59-year-old bear refuses to eat until she hears a familiar voice. Panic swept through Royal Burgers Zoo in Arnhem as Luna, the 59-year-old black bear matriarch, stopped eating, her health slipping away. In the spring of 2016, her amber eyes dimmed, her once robust frame grew frail. Keepers watched helplessly, heartbroken as their legend faded. Could a spark so wise and strong flicker out despite their care? The staff hovered near her den, voices hushed with worry as they offered untouched berries and fish. "She's not responding," one murmured, tears glinting. Luna's steady paws, once a guiding force for her thriving bear group, now trembled faintly in the straw. At 59, she defied time. Born wild, orphaned by poachers, rescued, and brought to Arnhem as a cub, her intelligence and calm leadership made her a cornerstone of black bear research, a beloved figure whose amber eyes had soothed both bears and humans for decades. Her decline rippled beyond the enclosure, reaching Professor Mark van Dyke. Retired at 72, his silver hair was a testament to years spent with her. In 1972, as a young biologist, he co-founded the Bear Enclosure, a haven of trees and streams where Luna reigned. Their bond grew beyond science into a deep friendship, hours of study stretching into quiet moments, her amber eyes meeting his hazel ones with trust. "She's fading." The zoo's call came, voice trembling, and Mark's heart clenched, a pull stronger than time tugging him back. He rushed to Arnhem, lanky frame hunched against the chill, thick jacket rustling, driven by a connection that had shaped his life. "I have to see her," he murmured, voice thick, hazel eyes glinting with hope, trust tethered to decades past, a spark glowing in his chest. Keepers met him at the gate, faces etched with grief, leading him through the zoo's paths, a pilgrimage to the bear who had taught them all. The enclosure loomed, a sanctuary of rocks and trees, but a heavy hush hung as Mark approached Luna's den. She lay frail and still, her massive frame sunken, amber eyes closed, steady paws limp in the straw, a matriarch slipping into shadow. "Luna, it's Mark," he called, voice trembling as he knelt, thick hands hovering near. Trust tethered to a whisper now, a spark faltering in silence. No response. Her breath was shallow. Keepers watched, tears glinting as hope dimmed. Mark's chest tightened, hazel eyes shimmering as he leaned closer, desperation clawing at his heart. "Please, old friend," he murmured, voice thick, hands trembling. A memory stirred, a tune from their past, soft, lilting, hummed through storms and studies. He sang, voice quavering, tears falling, notes threading through the den, a lifeline from decades ago. Luna's ears twitched, faintly at first. Then, her amber eyes cracked open, locking onto his with a glimmer of recognition. Trust tethered to a song, a spark rekindled in her gaze. The staff gasped, keepers clutching hands as hope flickered. Luna's massive frame stirred, steady paws shifting as she gripped his hand, weak but alive. Amber eyes softened with life. "She knows you," a keeper whispered, tears glinting. Mark's song, a tether pulling her back, a bond woven through time, a spark breaking the wild's quiet fade. The enclosure stretched, a haven turned shrine, as Mark sang on. Hazel eyes glinted with tears, thick hands steady on her paw. Trust tethered to friendship, now a flame in the twilight, a whisper of hope threading through the zoo's gentle hum. Days later, Mark found a hidden stash, nuts and berries Luna had saved, proof of resilience, her strength tied to his visits. Trust tethered to a spark, now a flame glowing brighter. The zoo pulsed, keepers watching in awe as Luna nibbled, her massive frame lifting, other bears stirring, distress easing. Trust tethered to a voice, now a flame in their midst, a whisper of life threading through the enclosure's quiet. Mark Van Dyke sat beside Luna's den at Royal Burgers Zoo, his lanky frame folded into a chair as the April sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the enclosure. His silver hair caught the light, hazel eyes shimmering with quiet hope as he watched her frail form shift in the straw. The black bear matriarch's amber eyes met his, faint but alive, a spark flickering where despair had loomed just days before. Could a familiar voice, woven through decades, reignite a fading flame? The keepers moved softly around them, their footsteps hushed as they placed a bowl of berries near Luna. Her massive frame stirred, steady paws trembling slightly as she sniffed the offering. "She's taking it," one whispered, voice lifting with cautious joy. Mark's song still lingered in the air, a soft hum threading through the den. From that first desperate moment, a melody from their past, once a comfort during stormy nights and long studies, now a lifeline, pulling her back from the edge. He leaned closer, thick hands resting near her straw bed, trust tethered to a tune that had stirred her soul. Luna's amber gaze softened, a glimmer of recognition warming the dimness as she nudged a berry with her snout, jaws working slowly. "Good girl," Mark murmured, voice thick with relief. His hazel eyes shimmered, tears held back as he watched her eat, small bites, tentative at first, then steadier, strength stirring in her weary frame. The staff exchanged glances, their worry easing into smiles. The matriarch they had feared lost was rallying, her spark tethered to the man who had rushed to her side. The enclosure pulsed with a gentle rhythm, keepers bustling with renewed purpose, their voices soft as they tended to the other bears. Luna's group had grown restless in her decline, pacing and huffing, their distress a quiet echo of her fading presence. Now, their movements lightened, heads lifting, amber eyes glinting with curiosity, as if sensing her return. "They feel it," a keeper said, voice hushed with awe. Mark nodded, his thick hands steady as he watched. Trust tethered to a bond that stretched beyond her den, a spark glowing in their shared space. Days deepened into a fragile hope. Mark arrived each morning, his lanky frame a familiar sight as he settled by Luna's side. "Luna, it's me," he'd call, voice soft, humming that same tune, a melody woven from decades past, a thread stitching their friendship through time. Her amber eyes brightened with each visit, steady paws reaching for the food he offered, berries, nuts, bits of fish. "She's fighting," a keeper murmured, voice thick with relief. Her massive frame lifted, a matriarch reclaiming her place. One dusk, Mark lingered longer, his hazel eyes tracing her den as the zoo grew quiet. Luna shifted, snout nudging the straw, and a soft clink sounded, a hidden stash tumbling free. Nuts and berries she had tucked away, proof of a resilience he had never fully grasped. "You saved these," he murmured, voice thick with wonder. His thick hands gathered the hoard, tears glinting as he realized she had conserved energy waiting for him. A spark tethered to their bond, now a flame glowing in her quiet defiance. The keepers gathered, voices soft with amazement as Mark shared the find. "She knew you'd come," one said, eyes shining. She held on. Luna's amber gaze met his, steady and warm. Trust tethered to a voice. A spark rekindled by a friend's return. Her massive frame, a testament to a will that refused to fade. "Good girl," he whispered. Thick hands steady as he offered a berry, her jaws working gently, strength stirring with each bite, a bond woven through time, now a flame glowing in the dusk. The enclosure stretched, a haven reborn as Luna's presence steadied her group, settling their restless pacing, easing into calm, amber eyes glinting with quiet joy. Trust tethered to a matriarch's rally, their livelier presence, a keeper noted, voice soft with relief. Her steady paws, a cornerstone restored, her spark of flame warming their shared space. Mark's hazel eyes shimmered, his thick hands steady as he watched, trust tethered to a friendship, now a spark threading through the zoo's gentle pulse. Weeks unfolded, Luna's frame filling out, her amber eyes regaining their gleam. Keepers bustled with renewed purpose, voices soft as they tended her den, trust tethered to a miracle they dared to hope for. "She's back," one murmured, tears glinting as they watched her massive frame lift, a matriarch reclaiming her throne, a spark tethered to a voice, now a flame glowing in their care. The zoo pulsed, visitors whispering of her rally, keepers sharing tales of her stash, her amber eyes a testament to a bond that defied time. Trust tethered to a friendship, now a flame in the spring's gentle glow. Mark lingered each dusk, his lanky frame a steady presence, his hazel eyes glinting with tears, thick hands steady as he sang. Trust tethered to a tune, now a spark threading through the zoo's quiet embrace. Luna's amber eyes flickered open to the soft clatter of a keeper's tray, the scent of fresh berries wafting through her den at Royal Burger Zoo as dawn crept over Arnhem. Her massive frame shifted in the straw, still frail but steadier now, her thick black coat catching the morning light as she sniffed the offering. Weeks had passed since Mark's voice had stirred her from the edge, and though her strength wavered, a spark glowed within her once more. Could a bond so deep, rekindled by a song, hold firm against the shadow of time? The keepers moved with gentle purpose around her, voices hushed with cautious hope as they watched her steady paws reach for the food. "She's taking more today," one murmured, a smile breaking through the worry that had etched their faces, her amber eyes glinting with a faint but growing light. Mark Van Dyke arrived soon after, his lanky frame stepping softly into the enclosure, silver hair tousled from the morning breeze, hazel eyes shimmering with quiet relief as he settled beside her. "Good morning, old friend," he said, voice warm and steady, thick hands offering a handful of nuts, trust woven through decades, a spark glowing in her slow nod. Her jaws worked gently, nibbling the nuts with a care that belied her massive size, each bite a small victory threading through the den's stillness. "She's fighting," a keeper whispered, voice thick with awe as Luna's amber gaze lifted to Mark, her steady paws trembling less now, trust tethered to a familiar presence, a flame rekindled by his care. He hummed softly, that tune from their past, a melody once sung through stormy nights and long studies, notes weaving through the air, a lifeline stitching her back to life. The enclosure pulsed with a renewed rhythm, keepers bustling with trays and blankets, other bears stirring beyond the den, their amber eyes glinting with curiosity as they sensed her rally. Her group had faltered in her decline, pacing and huffing in distress, but now they sprawled in the sun, heads lifting with a calm that mirrored her own. "They're settling," a keeper noted, voice soft with wonder, watching a younger bear nudge Luna's paw, her steady presence a cornerstone restored, trust glowing in their shared space. Mark lingered longer each day, his thick jacket shed as spring warmed, voice threading through the den with that familiar hum, trust tethered to a tune, a spark glowing in her amber eyes. "You're still here," he murmured, voice thick as he watched her rise, steady paws brushing the straw, her massive frame lifting with quiet strength. Trust woven through time, a flame burning brighter with each visit. "She's leading them again," a keeper said, eyes shining, her amber gaze guiding her kin, trust tethered to a matriarch's return. One dusk, Mark knelt by her side, hazel eyes tracing her movements as she shifted, snout nudging the straw, a soft clink breaking the silence, another hidden stash tumbling free, nuts and berries she had tucked away, proof of a resilience he'd never fully grasped. "You planned this," he murmured, voice thick with wonder, tears glinting as he gathered the hoard, trust tethered to a secret, a spark glowing in her quiet defiance. She was waiting, a keeper said, voice hushed with reverence, her steady pause a testament to a strength tied to his voice. The zoo thrummed, keepers whispering of her rally, visitors peering through the glass, Luna's amber eyes a beacon drawing them near, trust tethered to a miracle they dared to hope for. She's eating more, one noted, voice lifting as she took fish from Mark's hand, her massive frame filling out, trust woven through care, a spark glowing in her steady rise. Mark's hazel eyes shimmered, thick hands steady as he watched, voice humming soft, trust tethered to a friendship, a flame threading through the zoo's gentle pulse. Weeks stretched, Luna's strength blooming, her amber eyes regaining their gleam, keepers bustling with joy, voices soft as they tended her den, trust tethered to a bond that defied age. She's back, a keeper said, tears glinting as they watched her massive frame lifting, her steady paws guiding her group, a matriarch reclaiming her throne. Trust tethered to a voice, a flame glowing in their midst. The younger bears followed, amber eyes glinting with respect, her spark a beacon warming their shared haven. The enclosure stretched, a sanctuary reborn as Luna's presence steadied her group, thriving, amber eyes glinting with quiet joy. Trust tethered to a matriarch's return, her steady paw a cornerstone restored. Mark's hazel eyes shimmered, thick hands steady as he watched, voice humming soft, trust tethered to a friendship, now a flame threading through the zoo's gentle embrace, a whisper of resilience glowing in the dusk. Luna's massive frame lumbered across the enclosure at Royal Burger Zoo, her steady paws pressing into the soft earth as she nosed a pile of berries offered by a keeper one bright May morning. Her thick black coat gleamed under the Arnhem sun, amber eyes glinting with a quiet strength that had returned after weeks of care. Mark Van Dyke watched from a bench, his lanky frame relaxed, silver hair catching the light, hazel eyes shimmering with tender pride as he traced her every move. Could a bond so deep, sustained by a song, cradle a matriarch through her final days? Keepers bustled around the den, voices soft with relief as they refilled water troughs, watching Luna rise with a vigor they'd feared lost. She's leading them again, one murmured, a smile breaking through as she nudged a younger bear aside, her massive frame a steady anchor, amber eyes calm yet commanding. Mark's thick hands rested on his knees, voice humming that familiar tune, a melody threading through the enclosure, a lifeline woven from decades past. Good girl, he said, voice thick with warmth, trust tethered to a friendship, a spark glowing in her steady gaze. The enclosure pulsed with a gentle rhythm, keepers moving with purpose, other bears sprawling in the sun, their amber eyes glinting with curiosity. Luna's presence a balm, soothing their once restless hearts. They're thriving now, a keeper noted, voice hushed with wonder, watching a cub tumble near her paws, her steady frame a cornerstone restored, trust glowing in their shared haven. Mark's hazel eyes softened. His thick hands were steady as he watched, voice threading through the air, a spark of life warming the zoo's quiet pulse. Weeks stretched into a fragile spring, Luna's strength blooming, her amber eyes regaining their gleam. Keepers bustled with trays of fish and nuts, voices soft with joy as they tended her den. She's eating more each day, one said, eyes shining as she took a piece from Mark's hand, her massive frame lifting with a quiet grace. Trust was woven through care, a flame glowing in her steady rise. You're still here, he murmured, voice thick, his thick hands offering a berry, her jaws working gently. Trust was tethered to a voice, a spark threading through the enclosure's hush. One afternoon, Mark lingered by her side, hazel eyes tracing her den as keepers cleaned, his thick hands brushing straw. A soft clink revealed yet another stash, nuts tucked beneath a log, proof of her quiet foresight. You've always planned ahead, he murmured, voice thick with wonder, tears glinting as he gathered the horde. Trust was tethered to a secret, a spark glowing in her resilience. "She knew you'd stay," a keeper said, voice soft with awe, her steady pause a testament to a will tied to his presence, a flame burning brighter with each visit. The zoo thrummed, visitors whispering of her rally, keepers sharing tales of her hidden caches. Luna's amber eyes were a beacon, drawing them near, trust tethered to a miracle they dared to hope for. "She's leading them all," one noted, voice lifting as she guided her group, her massive frame a steady anchor. Trust was woven through time, a spark glowing in their shared space. Mark's hazel eyes shimmered, thick hands steady as he watched, voice humming soft, trust tethered to a friendship, a flame threading through the zoo's gentle glow. Days deepened, Luna's massive frame steadying, her amber eyes glinting with a calm that belied her age. Keepers bustled with renewed purpose, voices soft as they tended her den. "She's teaching them still," a keeper said, eyes glinting as they watched her steady paws nudging a cub, her massive frame a cornerstone. Trust was glowing in her quiet strength, a flame warming the enclosure's heart. One dusk, Luna paused, her massive frame settling by the den's edge, amber eyes lifting to Mark, her steady paws brushing straw, her breath slowing as she rested. Trust was tethered to a presence, a spark glowing in her fading gaze. Mark knelt, thick hands steady, voice humming that tune, trust tethered to a song, a flame threading through the twilight's hush. "You're still here," he murmured, tears glinting, her amber eyes softening, a quiet farewell shimmering in her look. The night stretched, the enclosure hushed, keepers watching with bated breath. Luna's massive frame was still, amber eyes closing, her steady paws limp, trust tethered to a voice, a flame fading in the zoo's gentle glow. Mark's hazel eyes shimmered, thick hands trembling, voice breaking as he sang, trust tethered to a friendship, a spark slipping into the dark, a whisper of peace threading through the silence. The zoo pulsed, keepers gathering, voices soft with grief. Luna's massive frame became a memory, her amber eyes a spark extinguished, trust tethered to a bond, a flame glowing in their hearts. Mark stood, lanky frame steady, hazel eyes glinting, thick hands steady, trust tethered to a legacy, a spark threading through the zoo's quiet embrace, a whisper of resilience glowing in the dusk. Luna's final breath slipped away in the stillness of Royal Burger Zoo's enclosure, her massive frame resting peacefully in the straw as the Arnhem night deepened around her. The May stars shimmered faintly through the canopy, casting a gentle glow over her thick black coat, now still, a quiet monument to a life that had defied the odds for 59 years. Mark Van Dyke knelt beside her, his lanky frame hunched with grief, silver hair falling across his brow, hazel eyes glistening with tears as he held her steady paw one last time. His voice broke into a soft hum, that familiar tune threading through the silence, a melody woven from decades of friendship, a lifeline that had tethered her to him until the end. Could a bond so deep, glowing through years, leave a light that outlasted her fading spark? The keepers stood in a quiet circle, faces etched with sorrow, hands clasped as they watched the matriarch they had tended slip into peace. "She's gone," one murmured, voice trembling with a mix of loss and reverence, eyes glinting as they traced her massive form, her amber eyes closed forever, steady paws limp in the straw. A legend stilled. Mark's thick hands trembled, his hazel eyes shimmering as he pressed his forehead to hers, tears falling onto her scarred snout. Trust was tethered to a friendship, a flame flickering out in the zoo's gentle hush. "Good girl," he whispered, voice thick, his song fading into the night, a spark extinguished, yet glowing in his heart. The enclosure stretched silent, a sanctuary turned shrine. As dawn broke, keepers moved with hushed purpose, voices soft with grief as they tended her den one final time. Trust was tethered to a memory, a flame glowing in their shared loss. She rallied for you, a keeper said, voice soft, eyes meeting Mark's, tears glinting as they spoke. Her massive frame was a testament to a will tied to his presence, her amber eyes a spark that had warmed them all. Mark nodded, lanky frame steady, hazel eyes glinting, thick hands steady as he rose. Trust was tethered to a legacy, a spark threading through the zoo's quiet embrace. Days deepened into a tender morning, the zoo pulsing with a subdued rhythm, visitors whispering of Luna's rally, keepers sharing tales of her hidden stashes. Her amber eyes were a memory, drawing them near, trust tethered to a miracle they had witnessed. She was more than a bear, a keeper said, voice thick with reverence, watching her group pace, amber eyes glinting with a quiet unease. Her steady presence was a void they felt, trust glowing in their shared space. Mark lingered, lanky frame a steady presence, hazel eyes tracing her den, voice soft as he spoke. Trust was tethered to a friendship, a flame threading through the zoo's gentle glow. The zoo planned a tribute, keepers bustling with purpose, voices soft as they gathered photos and notes. Luna's massive frame was a legacy etched in their hearts, trust tethered to a bond, a flame glowing in their resolve. We'll honor her, one said, eyes shining, her steady paws a cornerstone they'd never forget, her amber eyes a spark that had guided them all. Mark stood among them, lanky frame steady, hazel eyes glinting, thick hands steady as he offered, trust tethered to a legacy, a spark threading through their shared effort, a whisper of resilience glowing in the dusk. The ceremony unfolded, a quiet gathering beneath the enclosure's trees, visitors and staff standing shoulder to shoulder, voices hushed as they listened. Keepers shared tales of her wisdom, her massive frame a memory warming their words, trust tethered to a miracle, a flame glowing in their tribute. She taught us empathy, Mark said, voice thick, hazel eyes shimmering as he spoke, his thick hands clutching a photo, Luna's amber eyes glinting from decades past. Trust tethered to a friendship, a spark threading through the zoo's gentle hush. She was more than research, she was connection, he murmured, tears glinting, her steady presence a legacy etched in his soul. The zoo stretched, a sanctuary reborn as Luna's story spread, visitors whispering of her rally, keepers sharing tales of her hidden strength, trust tethered to a bond, a flame glowing in their hearts. She's inspired us, a keeper said, voice soft, eyes glinting as they watched her massive frame of memory, her amber eyes a spark that lingered, trust glowing in their shared resolve, a whisper of resilience threading through the enclosure's quiet. Years stretched, Mark returning often, lanky frame stooping with age, silver hair thinning, hazel eyes glinting as he stood by her den, trust tethered to a legacy, a spark glowing in his quiet visits. The enclosure thrived, Luna's group growing, amber eyes glinting with a calm she had nurtured, trust tethered to a matriarch, a flame glowing in their steady steps. She's still here, he murmured, voice thick, thick hands tracing a plaque, Luna, matriarch of empathy, trust tethered to a friendship, a spark threading through the zoo's gentle glow. The wild stretched beyond, Luna's story rippling through studies, keepers whispering of her rally, visitors sharing tales of her hidden stashes, trust tethered to a miracle, a flame glowing in global efforts, her amber eyes a legacy sparking conservation, trust glowing in hearts far and wide, a whisper of resilience threading through the world's gentle pulse. The autumn leaves drifted gently over Royal Burger Zoo in Arnhem, their golden hues painting the enclosure where Luna's legacy lingered years after her passing. Mark van Dyke stood by her den, his lanky frame stooped more now at 78, silver hair thinning beneath a worn cap, hazel eyes glinting with quiet reverence as he traced the plaque engraved with her name, Luna, matriarch of empathy. The zoo hummed softly around him, visitors whispering tales of her rally, keepers tending her group with a reverence born from her memory. Could a bear's gentle light, kindled in trust, continue to glow through time? The enclosure stretched, a sanctuary bathed in the soft glow of falling leaves, Luna's massive frame a shadow etched in the straw where she'd rested her final days. Mark's thick hands brushed the plaque, voice trembling as he murmured, "You're still here, old friend." Trust tethered to a friendship that had shaped his life, a spark glowing in the zoo's gentle hush. The keepers moved with a steady rhythm, voices soft as they scattered berries, eyes lifting to the younger bears, amber gazes glinting with a calm inherited from her steady paws. Clara Ortiz, now a frequent visitor, joined Mark one crisp morning, her dark hair streaked with gray, steady hands clutching a notebook as she watched Luna's kin. Her group's thriving, she said, voice calm yet warm, hazel eyes glinting as she traced their movements, trust tethered to a legacy, a spark glowing in her notes. They've learned her ways, gentle guiding, she murmured, her steady hands flipping pages, records of black bear behavior enriched by Luna's life, trust woven through science, a flame threading through the zoo's quiet pulse. The bears moved with quiet grace, steady paws nudging cubs, amber eyes glinting as they sprawled in the sun, a matriarch's spirit shimmering in their calm. "That's her grandson," a keeper said, voice soft with pride, pointing to a broad male, his massive frame echoing Luna's, trust tethered to a lineage, a spark glowing in his steady gaze. Mark's hazel eyes shimmered, thick hands steady as he watched, voice soft as he spoke, trust tethered to a friendship, a flame threading through the enclosure's gentle glow. Years stretched, Mark returning often, lanky frame slowing, hazel eyes glinting as he stood by her den, trust tethered to a legacy, a spark glowing in his quiet visits. The zoo pulsed, visitors whispering of Luna's rally, keepers sharing tales of her hidden stashes, trust tethered to a miracle, a flame glowing in their hearts. "She's inspired us," a keeper said, voice thick, watching cubs tumble, amber eyes glinting with a calm she'd nurtured, trust glowing in their shared resolve, a whisper of resilience threading through the enclosure's quiet. Clara's research deepened, steady hands crafting studies, voice lifting as she spoke to crowds, Luna's story rippling beyond Arnhem, trust tethered to a legacy, a spark glowing in global efforts. "She taught us connection," she said, hazel eyes glinting, her notes a testament to Black Bear's depth, trust woven through science, a flame threading through the world's gentle pulse. "That first bear saw survivors as kin," she murmured, voice soft, recalling the flight attendant's diary, trust tethered to a bond, a spark glowing in her words, a whisper of empathy reaching far. The enclosure stretched, a haven reborn, Luna's group thriving, amber eyes glinting with quiet joy, trust tethered to a matriarch's light, her steady paws a memory guiding their steps. Mark stood, lanky frame steady, hazel eyes tracing their play, voice soft as he spoke, trust tethered to a friendship, a flame glowing in the zoo's gentle embrace. "She's in them," he murmured, thick hands steady, tears glinting, trust tethered to a legacy, a spark threading through the autumn's hush. One dusk, Mark lingered, hazel eyes glinting as he watched a cub, amber eyes mirroring Luna's, steady paws nudging a berry, trust tethered to a lineage, a spark glowing in its quiet play. "You're her light," he whispered, voice thick, his thick hands trembling, trust tethered to a friendship, a flame threading through the zoo's gentle glow, a whisper of resilience shimmering in the dusk. The zoo stretched, visitors whispering of Luna's rally, keepers sharing tales of her wisdom, trust tethered to a miracle, a flame glowing in their hearts, her amber eyes a legacy etched in their minds, a whisper of connection threading through the world's gentle pulse, a spark that refused to fade.